Sunday. We gotta get ready for church. Brian! Brian! Wake up, honey! Brian, get up, get up. Well, okay, I'm gonna hop in the shower real quick. You get the kids ready, and then we'll get going,
No.
okay?
Hey, you just lay out their clothes, because it takes me 5 minutes.
Honey,
That's perfect.
Seriously.
Jack. Well, we're already late for church.
Hey,
Go
Brian.
get yourself dressed.
Did you pick up my stuff from the dry cleaners?
Make it, break it. Make it, break it. Make it, break it.
Okay, Jack. I'm gonna make you waffles.
Can I have a sandwich?
Yes, but you gotta make it by yourself. Jack. Okay.
This is all I could find, and the zipper's broken.
All right. I'll go grab a safety pin.
I got the high score!
Make it, break it. Make it, break it.
Hannah, what are you doing?
Daddy, I'm painting your fingernails.
Well, that's great, sweetie, but go get dressed.
I need you to stay still. Okay, honey. Hannah!
Come on, let's go.
Okay, everybody needs to eat. Here you go.
I need one.
Here you go. Okay, here you go.
I forgot my shoes!
Honey, we gotta go back.
Here you go.
I want to take off my shoes.
Nobody's taking off their shoes. And I want everybody to understand that we're... What?
We made it.
Yep.
Can I ask how many of you have never had a morning like that? Dallas Willard writes that in the Palestine of Jesus' day, there were many fine theaters. One was in the city of Sepphoris, just about 3 miles north of Jesus' hometown of Galilee. It's very possible that when this theater was first built, Jesus and Joseph were hired to help build this theater. Carpenters were needed. It's possible they were one of them. And it's possible that Jesus' first contact with actors who carried on a dialogue under a mask took place in this theater. Greek theater involved masks, and the person under the mask was called hupa krites. The krites was the mask. Hupa means under it, under the mask. And as they would carry on this dialogue, the person under the mask became known as the hupa krites. Of course, it sounds an awful lot like another word in English, which it comes from, the word hypocrite. Under the mask, the person who is not what they seem. Jesus used the word hypocrite in referring to the Pharisees. He was the first person to use that word. These were the religious leaders of the day. People admired them, looked up to them. But he told them to their face, "You are not what you seem." He was the first to do that. The problem was not necessarily that the Pharisees demanded that people stick to a very strict religious code and were very legalistic. The problem was they had no intention of doing what they were telling everyone else to do. In this Sermon on the Mount, some have called it the Discourse on the Hill, Jesus said, "Be careful not to do your acts of righteousness before men to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from my Father in heaven." There's nothing necessarily wrong with doing something good and someone seeing it. The problem is is if your intent is to be seen by people. If you're doing something good to get attention because you're doing something good, there's where the problem is. So if we're not supposed to be seen by men, then why did Jesus say, "Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven"? Am I supposed to hide the good? Am I supposed to do the good in public? Jesus, what's going on here? There are those things that are designed to help us grow in the Christian life. Those are the things that Jesus intends us to be done privately. There are those things that Jesus intends for us to be doing in a public setting, so that the good that is done, people will see and they will give credit to the Lord. We thank God that you did that good thing that you did. When people who have been so changed by their walk with the Lord automatically do the things that Jesus has called them to do, the character becomes such that automatically the public display is a good thing that people can see. The three things that Jesus mentioned: giving, the next thing was praying, and then fasting. He mentioned to his disciples, when you do these things, now keep in mind he's talking to those who are following him, and he said, when you give and when you pray and when you fast, Jesus assuming that they would be doing these things. And he told them, do them in secret so that you won't be putting on a show like the Pharisees do. Unfortunately, we have sometimes made this into a kind of absolute rule. All your giving has to be done secretly. All your praying has to be done secretly. All your fasting has to be done secretly. And his point is not to create a new set of rules for us. These are just examples of the way kingdom people do their acts of righteousness. But doing them in secret, Jesus also wants to let them know, is the way to break the bondage of people's opinion over you. Dallas Willard is a Christian writer, professor. I mentioned to Bob this morning, he's from California, but we won't hold that against him. Godly man who writes this: what Jesus is teaching us to do in this important passage from his discourse is to be free of control by the opinions of others. The discipline of secrecy will help us break the grip of human opinion over our souls and our actions. Someone described it, and you may have heard this before, as the difference between a thermometer and a thermostat. A thermometer just tells you how hot you are. A thermostat allows you to control how hot it is. The person who is bound by the opinions of others will simply be reflecting what everybody else is thinking and doing and saying, and they are so afraid of the opinions of people that they tend to adjust what they think, what they do, what they feel, according to who's around them at that time. It's a dangerous thing. But the person who has spent that time with Jesus and developed those secret disciplines can be with other people that disagree with him and still maintain those bedrock convictions that allow him or her to act as a follower of Jesus, no matter who's around. We let our light shine as a result of having been with Jesus in the secret place and allowing him to show us how not to adapt when adapting is not honest. The Council of Churches conducts a Lenten luncheon series every year. And at the luncheon after the service, you're invited to give a donation of $3 to help cover the cost of the lunch. One particular event that I went to, I forgot cash. Reached for my wallet and realized I don't have any money to put in that basket. And there's a whole line of people behind me, and they're going to see whether or not I put anything in that basket. And I was a lot more concerned about whether they would think badly of me than whether I had something to pay this bill with. It wasn't a bill, it was a donation. The opinions of others can weigh so heavily that it tempts you to do something inappropriate. And so Jesus says, in the secrecy, do your giving and your fasting and your praying where people won't see. And learn from that how to do the thing that needs to be done, no matter who is around. Fasting is something we don't talk about too much. There's certainly a time. This afternoon is not going to be one of those times. Right after the service, if you're in the middle of a fast, please let me know and we'll honor that. If you're not, please join us. But fasting tends to be that very religious thing that most people think about, have heard about, don't normally practice, because it's really tough. And yet, Jesus says there's a time to fast. And part of the purpose of fasting is to expose the things in us that may have a hold on us and we don't even realize it, like the opinions of others. And so, even though rushing and hurrying and getting short and getting angry before the church service and being in that situation where things are just, and then you walk into church and you suddenly are a radiant Christian, there's a degree to which that feels like hypocrisy. But each of us has those mornings. Perhaps the greater concern is when day to day you don't have what it takes to be a follower of Jesus in any situation. And so the disciplines of secrecy, the word secrecy sounds like something hidden. It's simply something you do alone with Jesus. And you don't make a public spectacle of it. Those disciplines help overcome the tendencies to play act our faith and will actually help free us from the bondage of the opinions of others. Our guest Pharisee this morning made it a point to remind us that this thing doesn't necessarily guarantee sanctity on a Sunday morning. But our guest tax collector reminded us too that God really isn't concerned with what you look like on the outside. We do ask that you come covered. And if that's a problem, there are extra robes in the choir room that we could loan you for the morning. Jesus is far more concerned with the character and the way it expresses itself. We learn much of that in that secrecy discipline. Pray with me.